Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a cafe au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 185th episode of the Simple Sophisticate. And I've just returned from my trip to England, and as I'm recording this episode, the rain is gently falling here in Bend, Oregon, when normally it would probably be snowing. So I think it's a way, at least this is the way I'm going to interpret it, of welcoming me home and easing me into my life here in Bend, because I have to say, I felt so amazingly comfortable and so enjoyed my experience in England and primarily in the Devon countryside. As many of you know, if you followed along on Instagram, and if you didn't and you would like to see some of the pictures, simply go to Instagram, follow the Simply Luxurious Life, that is the avatar, or simply search the hashtag TSLL England. You can see many more pictures, but there is one on today's show notes that you can check out as well. With that said, I want to thank all of you who followed along, who conversed with me, who shared ideas, who just simply said hello and reached out. I had an enormously wonderful time communicating with you along the way, and it was completely unexpected, and I am so grateful for your involvement and your curiosity. And it was fun to share what captured my attention on that trip. There's going to be more to come on that trip down the road, as I announced last week. Be sure to tune in or stop by the blog on December 15th, as there is a new edition that's going to be added to the Simply Luxurious Life brand or business or a way of life that I think you're going to enjoy. And I'll also be sharing all the details on the cottage I stayed in on that day as well. All right, but we have an episode to get to. And what we're talking about today is being awkward. So I've titled this episode, Give Yourself Permission to Be Awkward. Now, before I get into that, let you ponder that for a moment. This week's Petit Plaisir is a documentary that I watched while I was traveling, and I cannot wait to share with you. I think for anyone who is appreciative of others who are authentic and wants to be authentic themselves, and maybe is doing something or wants to do something that is not what everyone else is doing, this is a documentary for you. And if you are drawn to beauty and fashion and style and history, I think you will doubly be interested in this film. So stay tuned, as I will talk to you about that film and share with you the trailer as well. So let's talk about this concept of giving yourself permission to feel awkward. By default, we choose comfort over a better life, but we don't think that is what we're doing. We think we are choosing a better life by choosing comfort, what we know. When I say comfort, I'm talking about what we know, how we already go about our days. So why is that? Well, we don't know what or how the better life will unfold, but we do at least know what is somewhat okay, what we're already doing, what we know will happen tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So we think that by choosing today's comfort, even if it's not everything, somehow our subconscious knows it can be different, it can be better, we ignore that oftentimes instead of striving out for something else. And it makes sense. It's completely human and completely natural. For example, we may have gathered up the gumption to let go of a partner because the person we were becoming or the life that was evolving was shrinking or limiting or unhealthy in a myriad of ways. But after a few weeks or months or maybe even a few years, we think, well, at least I know how it will unfold, so maybe I should take them back. At least I know what it's going to be like. Another example is the job that doesn't excite us, but it pays decently or enough, and at least we know we have a job. We have a rhythm, even if that rhythm includes complaining more than we are cheering. Yet another example of choosing comfort rather than striving forward toward a better life is our weight is not what we know it could or should be, but we are comfortable with our daily eating and exercise habits or lack thereof. We like the food we are eating, and yes, the food we eat brings comfort, even if we know it doesn't bring us the best health for our body and mind. Let me share 2 more examples. The location on this planet that we call home. Yes, we can make wherever we are home. And that's one of the concepts we talk about on this podcast and on the blog. But maybe it's a little too much, talking money or even space, or a little, too unkempt, or too parochial, too noisy, or not stimulating enough. But we think to ourselves, at least we know how the days will unfold, who we will run into on our community streets, how to drive on the left or the right side of the road, how much our property taxes will be each month, or how much our rent will be from month to month. So at least we know. It's that comfort of knowing. And the last example I want to share with you of choosing comfort rather than striving forward toward a better life is our attitude. The words we utter, the thoughts we allow to pop up unsupervised often become a default. And because we know how to navigate in our world with these thoughts, we keep allowing them to have their way, even if we know we may be a bit too snarky, sarcastic, cynical, or negative about the likelihood of unknowns. At least we won't be made a fool. At least we already have our comeback. At least those around us know what to expect, and we know what to expect of their reaction. Since it is the holiday season, I would like to say, and feel free to join me in doing so, bah humbug! Bah humbug to each of these comforts that I've just talked about, and most certainly there are many more that I could have shared that limit us, that stand in the way of living a better life that allows us to experience reaching our fullest potential. So here's the question: how can we step out of the comfort zone of each of these? I want to answer that question for you here in a second, but first I want to share with you the sponsor of today's episode. Owning quality clothing, well-made clothing, is an investment, and I have particular designers and brands that I trust, but I would prefer not to pay full price and still get that quality product. I am excited to introduce you to Swap.com. Swap.com is the world's largest online consignment and thrift store. With Swap.com, you can save up to 90% off retail prices on your favorite brands like Lululemon, J. Crew, Nicole Miller, Talbot's, Calvin Klein, and White House Black Market. With 6,000 to 10,000 new items added daily, you will have endless options to shop. And if something doesn't fit, enjoy hassle-free returns within 30 days, no questions asked. As a Simple Sophisticate listener, not only will you save up to 90% off those retail prices, but you can also save 40% off your first order with the code SIMPLE40 through November 30th. So just a few more days to take advantage of this. And you'll also receive free shipping for orders over $10. So visit swap.com and don't forget to enter your special code SIMPLE40, that's SIMPLE40, and go to swap.com. Welcome back. Let's answer that question. How can we step out of the comfort zone that's just comforting enough to hold us back from striving forward towards something we know can be better? We just don't know how it's going to unfold. Simple answer: by giving ourselves permission to feel awkward. As many of you know, as I talked about at the top of today's episode, many of you came along with me on my trip to England virtually, either as Instagram followers or on Facebook or on the blog. The trip was full of beautiful experiences. And many of these experiences were opportunities for me to feel awkward. And I am going to call them opportunities. I want to use that positive connotation because they really were opportunities. Let's talk about that. Never before had I rented a car in a foreign country, let alone drove on the left side of the road and in the car. Never before had I traveled internationally during the holiday season, and never before had I ventured outside of the metropolis of London upon visiting England. Now, for those of you who may have had the opportunity to do any or all of these opportunities, they may sound simple to you or easy and or nothing to stress oneself about. But to others who have never done any of these or a few of them, the response may be quite different. Why? Because we see the comfortable life, the good life, the better life through our own individual experiences. Some readers who have always wanted to get out of the city and explore the countryside may be daunted by the idea of having to drive in a foreign country in order to spend time in a lovely rustic cottage. Or others may dismiss international travel altogether. But the truth is, if the only reason you don't do what you wish to do, long to do, is because it will be uncomfortable and full of unknowns, most likely putting you in a position to feel and appear very awkward, that is actually the sign you need to see, because that is precisely the new venture that will open up your world and reveal to you a better and more amazing way of life that you couldn't have imagined if only you had just kept dreaming and not took action. Now, I'm not saying that what you're going to see and experience is going to be perfect and wonderful and you want to adopt everything. But what I'm saying is you're going to learn something about yourself. Your subconscious is drawn to this destination or this thing to do for a reason. Be the detective, be the Sherlock Holmes, and figure out why. While my experiences in England are timely for me, and with the fresh feeling of feeling awkward, I drove quite slowly, by the way, on the country roads. They are beautiful, as I shared on Instagram stories, but very narrow. And this was just one of the examples of giving myself permission to feel awkward. And I think that's the right choice because I was driving slow. I knew there were drivers who were probably like, okay, why is this person driving so slow? Why are they pulling over once in a while to let me go by? Thank you for letting me go by. But I let go of that and I said, good for you for trying. Let's go back to the list of examples I talked about at the top of today's episode. Relationships. If you are used to being in a relationship, having a partner, and after months or years of being together, you are no longer in each other's lives. For some, it will be awkward to be alone. I would argue for most of us, it will be awkward depending upon how long we've been with our partner. But again, allow yourself to feel the awkwardness, revel in it, dance in it, understand that it's normal, laugh about it, journal about it, and then step into it. And eventually you will step through it. After time passes, you will look back on your journal entries that you wrote when you were initially feeling awkward. You will recognize the discomfort you were feeling, but also see that such feelings, while natural, were simply part of the process of growing, of expanding into the life you wanted to live, were capable of living, even though there were many unknowns in front of you. Yes, it would have been easy for me to say, nope, I cannot go to England, stay in this dream cottage that's in the country that I discovered during the holidays because it isn't fair to leave my dogs with a dog sitter. And who travels alone on the holidays? And I don't want to worry about driving as the English do on the left side. Oh my gosh, I can't do that. But instead I said yes. I said yes. And as someone who does know the experience of things not going as we might have hoped many, many times in the past, I was truly fortunate for my plans to unfold so beautifully and even exceed my expectations. And that's the thing. That is the gift of giving yourself permission to feel awkward. You discover how beautiful the world can be in reality and not just in your dreams. You discover strengths and preferences you may not have been sure about regarding yourself, but when you actually partake in them, they are solidified. You become more confident about certain understandings about yourself. You begin to trust people and the world again, or at least a little bit more after considerable vetting. Doing your homework truly does pay off. And you build a deeper appreciation for life and the clarity of the life you want to build. So whether you are allowing yourself to feel awkward, trying a new sport, taking a more challenging fitness class, stepping into a new career, meeting a new person, or trying to become more comfortable with your own company, know that feeling awkward as you begin the journey is a brilliant sign that you are doing exactly what you should. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I have been wrestling with this concept of feeling awkward, as far as how to talk about it. Because as I was planning this trip, there were many things I was nervous about. I was nervous about driving on the other side of the road. I was nervous about driving anywhere but the United States. I was nervous, how am I going to find my train and how am I going to navigate in the country? And there were so many things because it was all unknown. So many things that I was worried about initially. And I realized I just have to step forward into them. Do my homework beforehand. Do your homework. But then step forward. Say yes. Feel awkward. It's the best thing I ever did. And I would not have been able to tell you last year at this time that I would have been in England during the holidays. But I finally made that decision in September to say, yep, I'm going to England. I'm just so happy that I did it for so many reasons, and many of which I'm still trying to understand. And I think that's the gift of saying yes to things when we don't know what we're going to discover. We are then going to discover things that we've never experienced before, and it's going to take time to work through those. Because what's happening is our real selves, our most authentic selves, is coming into focus. And when you start to see what it is that really tickles your fancy, and when you become solidified and, oh, I really do like this, or I really don't like this, or I really can live like that, or I really can't live like this, decisions become easier as you move forward. Take a look at the show notes to see some images of the trip to England, as well as links to the Instagram feed and the hashtags. And I'll also put up a few similar posts and episodes that you may be interested in on this whole concept of stepping forward into the unknown, uncertainty, and dealing with fear. All right. Now, I'll be right back with this week's Petit Plaisir. Welcome back. This week's Petit Plaisir is a documentary that just came out in this past June, initially in Germany, and it's called Dries. The Belgian designer Dries van Noten, whose clothing is very bespoke and a lot of embroidery, a lot of unique combinations of colors and patterns and prints. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, if you are someone who is wanting to stay authentic to who you are in a world that's trying to tell you to be something different, and it doesn't feel like the right thing to do, to follow the crowd or to follow what everyone else is doing in a particular field or in your life, as well if you enjoy beauty, appreciate beauty, and if you want to see inside Dries's life, not only in his studios, but also into his home and to his garden especially, you're going to want to check out this film. So here is the trailer.
Okay, we're gonna start fitting.
Come on, up the line, everyone.
The word fashion I don't like, because fashion means something, okay, which is over after 6 months. I would like to find a word which is more timeless. Looks really quite something. Interesting. Up. I need contrast, I need tensions, I need kind of clash in the collection. So for me, it's not that I say, now I want to do something else than all the rest is doing. I just do the things which I like. You have to make the armhole maybe a little bit higher. The magic especially is that people can feel that it's done with kind of honesty, with a passion, and that it comes really from your heart. Voila.
He loves fashion. He's not the usual fashion character, which I very much like.
What kind of movie is this?
As the New York Times calls Dries van Noten, a man of little ego and big ideas. This film will take you, as we said, behind the scenes of his fashion label, but also behind the scenes of his private life and into his home, and especially his dog, the wire hair Welsh Terrier that accompanies him to work and in the garden and out into the grounds in his home. I think you'll enjoy this. It like I said, just came out. I'll provide the link on the show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 185 to get the links on how to access it. It's hard to find, but there is direct access right on the sites of the film online, and I'll provide that for you. So again, the documentary is called Dries, simply the first name of the well-known fashion designer. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each Monday's podcast where I'll recommend a book, a film, or a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. Now, before we wrap up today, I wanted to take a quick moment to give a shout out to 2 listeners who have taken the time to write very kind reviews of this podcast. I want to begin with a review by M. Lever, and they wrote, I found the podcast about 6 months ago and have backtracked to listen to them all. Shannon shares her valuable insight on how to achieve an elevated lifestyle through simplicity. Her melodious voice is so calming and is such a bright part of my week. Thanks, Shannon. Thank you very much for taking the time to read such a kind and generous review. And the second review I'd like to share today comes from the iTunes review Dubu, Duhbooh. I hope I pronounced that right. And they wrote, I adore this podcast. I can't wait to listen to the Simple Sophisticate each week. This is the only podcast I ever sit down, put my feet up, and just enjoy. I'm never disappointed and always feel encouraged and motivated by Shannon's candid approach to life and living it to the fullest. I highly recommend this podcast for anyone who needs a little reminder to slow down and savor life. Thank you, Shannon, for providing a beautiful and well thought out podcast each week. Thank you, Dubo. I sincerely appreciate your interest and your words, and I will continue to do my best to bring you podcast episodes that inspire. If you enjoy this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing what you enjoy about this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher, even if it's just to leave the starred reviews. You don't have to write a full-fledged review if you don't have that time. All of those reviews make a difference because when people come by the podcast or come across it, they read those reviews to see what it's about. And you guys, the listeners, you guys know. And if you're enjoying it, it just means the world. So thank you for taking the time if you've already done it or if you're going to do it in the future. Well, these are the last few days of November, and I hope they go exceedingly well for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, stop by the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, or pick up the book, now available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon, as well as in paperback, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide. To stay caught up on the most recent episodes of the podcast, blog posts, and to receive exclusive news as well as an extra dose of inspiration to start your weekend, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's weekly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox each Friday morning to enjoy with a hot cup of tea or a hot cup of coffee. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. À la prochaine.